Hello everyone, welcome back to our SDL2 GUI Chat Application Series in C. In the previous video we just popped up a window onto the screen. In this episode we'll be focusing on the UI layout, building the basic UI layout. This includes stuff like the input box, a header, text, it's basically stuff that we'll see on the screen and interact with. So let's get started. Now before we get started guys, if you haven't already installed SDL2, I've made two videos, one for installing it on Windows and one for installing it on Linux. They will pop up right here on the screen, and I'll also leave them as links below in the description. Alright guys, so let's start building our UI layout for our window. So guys, I'm gonna be working on a Windows environment, but you guys can do the same code on Linux or whatever system you are on. So I'm gonna navigate to my Git repository, which is on github.com/hacker3983 shut up. I'm gonna copy this repository link, and then I'm gonna open up my type here to search menu, and I'm gonna type msys2 ucrt64. Gonna press enter. So once that terminal opens, I'm gonna also go onto my desktop right here. So I'm gonna type cd into /c to go into my C drive, and then I'm gonna type cd into users home, then desktop. And then guys, I'm gonna run the git command, but it's not installed, so I need to install git. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna type --S, and I'm gonna type git. It's gonna ask us to proceed with the installation. Let's press Y to install git. And let's wait on that to install. Alright, just finished install guys. Alright, so now we can try to clone our repository. So we're gonna type git clone, and I'm just gonna paste the link that I copied. So I'm gonna press enter on my keyboard, and it's just finished cloning the repository. So if we check our desktop now, we should see a chat up folder. Oh, here it is, over here. Yeah, here it is right here. So what I'm gonna do now guys is start building out our chat application UI layout. So I'm gonna be using VS Code as my IDE, which stands for Integrated and Development Environment, if you guys don't know. So right now our application just displays a window, but what we want to do now is make it so it displays like a input box area, like a header, and also we want to change like the window background color. Let's try to compile our program by pressing, we can press Control Tab in VS Code to open up a terminal, and we can type gcc main.c dash L main GW32 dash L SDL2 main dash L SDL2, and we can type dash O main to output a main.exe file. So we have a main.exe file, and let's type ./main.exe to run it. So we see this window pop up, guys. Now it's just blank. Let's change the background color of our window. So to do that, guys, we're gonna create something that is called a SDL render. So we're gonna type SDL render asterisk, which stands for pointer, render equals SDL create render window. It's gonna ask us for our index, which is gonna be like our driver that we'll use to render stuff onto the screen within our window. It's gonna ask us for our window flag. Our render flag, will make the renderer type be SDL render accelerated. And then we can now set our background color for our window. Let's make it be white, because right now, if we look at it, it is just black. So we want to change that to something else. Let's change it to something like blue. So we created our render. So we'll type SDL underscore set render. We'll set render draw color. Then we'll pass in a reference to our render. And then we'll set the RGB color, right? So RGBA color. So RGB stands for red, green, blue, and A stands for alpha, right? So we'll set the R value to be a value that ranges from 0 to 255. Same thing with the rest of the values. So for the red value, we'll keep that at 0. The green value, we'll keep that at 0. And the blue value, will make that be 255. And our alpha value, will make that 255. The alpha channel is like the opacity of our window, right? But we'll keep that at the brightest, which is 255. We'll then call SDL render clear render. Now to actually display what we have rendered, we call SDL render present render, and it will show what we have rendered onto the screen. Now guys, we created a renderer object. It is on the heap, so we need to get rid of it. We need to call SDL destroy render to give the computer back the memory that SDL allocated. So now guys, if we recompile our program by running gcc main.c again, so we'll recompile our program, then we'll execute our main.exe, we should see a blue background. Let's change it to something else like green. So all we need to do is set the green value, and let's set this blue value back to 0. We'll run our code again, recompile and run our code, and we'll see a green window. Alright guys, so now let's try to build like a little chat area. Let's create a few variables like our window color. So there's a variable in SDL, or a data type in SDL called SDL color, which is essentially a structure that allows us to store colors like the red, green, and blue values. So I'll create a variable, let's call it window color. The red value, we'll set it equal to 0. the R value will set it equal to 2. The green value will set it equal to 255, and the blue value 0, and the alpha value 255. And then guys, we can just do window underscore color dot R, window underscore color dot G, window underscore color dot D, window underscore color dot A. Now guys, that kinda looks like a lot, not clean or professional, right? But you can see it still works when we recompile our program. We'll build a simple macro. Let's do hash define color underscore to param. It will accept a color. It will assume that it's of the type SDL underscore color, and we'll do color.r, color.g, color.d, color.a. So now guys, we can clean this up a bit, and we can just do something like this: color underscore to param, and then we can pass in our window color variable, and it will automatically do something we call pre-processing, and it will pass in our color through there. So if we recompile our code and then we run it again, we should still get blue. We can also change it. Let's change it to white. We can make this, each one of these values be 255, and we should get a white background. So now we have a white background, guys. Now let's build our input box. So we're gonna create a type. Let's make it be a SDL rectangle. Let's call it input box. And then we're gonna specify a few values inside of it. We're gonna specify the X value, and we're gonna specify the Y value of our input box. So let's make the X value be 0, and let's make the Y value be 0. We'll next need to specify the width of our input box. Let's make it be 100, and the height of our input box to be 50. Alright guys, and so right now let's also create another variable for our input box color. So we'll have a SDL color input box color. We'll specify the red RGBA value for it. We'll make our input box black for now. So we can just do these curly braces and then put 0 in between there. And then now guys, we can just do this. We can display our input box by just doing SDL underscore set render draw color, passing our render, and we can just say color underscore to param input box color. And then we can display our input box by calling SDL render draw render ampersand input box. So we pass a pointer or reference to our input box rectangle. So if we run it, our code now guys, so we recompile and then we run it. Let's see what happens. So our input box is up here, and also it also just shows a border. Let's make it fully black. So SDL has a function called SDL render fill rect. it accepts a render, and then we'll pass in a reference to our input box, and it will fill it with the color black for us. So if we recompile our code again, we should get a black input box. Okay, let's type main. So we'll get a black input box. Now it's at the top left of the screen. Let's try to get it in the bottom middle of the screen. So first, guys, we'll want to get our window width and our window height in order to center it onto the screen. So let's create a few variables up here. Let's call it win width, and let's set it equal to 900 for now. And then win height, let's set it equal to 600 for now. We can also replace these with win width and then win height right here. And then, guys, there's a function in SDL that allows us to get the size of our window, because if you guys look at this, we can also change the size of our window. We can resize it. So what happens if our window size changes? The constants that we set here, which was 900 and 600, it would never change, you know. So we need some way to store that. So we create some variables, win width and win height, to do that. So now, guys, we'll call SDL underscore get window size. We'll pass in a reference to our window. We'll pass in a reference to our win width variable, because this accepts the width. Then the height, we'll pass in the window height. And then, guys, once we have that height, the window width and the window height, we'll need to set the position of our input box. So we'll type input box.x to center it horizontally. So essentially, we'll get the window width, we'll subtract the input box width from it, and we will divide it by 2 to ensure we get half of the screen. So, guys, if we run our code now, we should see that our input box will appear in the middle of the screen. So let's recompile and then run. So there's our input box. Now, guys, we want to get it right down at the bottom of the screen. So let's do that right now. So we'll center it, we'll put it at the bottom. So we'll say input box.y equals to the window height, so the height of the window, minus the input box height. And then now, guys, we're essentially gonna see our input box at the end, at the bottom of our screen. If we recompile and then type /main, and we'll see our input box right here. Now, it's kind of too far down the edge. So let's maybe subtract 10 from it, 10 pixels, and let's recompile and run our code. Wait, that's /main. So we'll get our input box right here. Now it's too small. Let's make it so that it grows with our window. So let's just set our input box width to be equal to input box. So we'll type input box.width equals to the window width. Then our input box.height equals to the window height. no, let's make it the height remain the same, but just the width, it will be the window height. So let's run our code. Alright, so there we have it, guys. We have the input box the same as the window. Now let's subtract like 20 from that. So it will subtract 10 from this side and 10 from the other. And let's also, instead of setting it within our loop where we're rendering stuff, let's set the input box width from outside of here. So inside of this here, we'll set the width is right here, right? It was 100 before. So what we'll do, we'll move this piece of code above this X before we center our input box. So we'll change the width of the input box, then we will center it in the screen. So let's see what happens now. So we run our code, and then we can see as we resize our window, our input box shrinks and fits inside of it. So we can resize it, you see, and it grows. We can maximize, we can do whatever. Alright, let's try to change our input box color. Let's change it to something like green, for example. So we set the green value, and we set the R values and the blue value to 0. We recompile, and then we type /main. Oh, I set the wrong thing. I changed the window color instead. Let's reset it back. So the red value should be 255, the green value should be 255, the blue value should be 255. And the input box color, we will set it right here. So we set the red value, which is gonna be 0, and then we'll set the green value, which is gonna be 255, and then we set the blue value to 0, then we set the alpha value to 255. Now guys, that we have done that, if we recompile our code, then we run it, we should see a green input box. Let's change it to blue. So all we need to do is change our green value to 0 and then our blue value to 255. So we run our code again, and then we'll see a blue input box. Let's add some more, let's subtract some more pixels from our window width. So we'll recompile our code, and we will run it. Alright. So guys, now that we have done that, let's make it so that at the top of our screen, we display like a header, like a little box, like chat room or something. So let's do that. So we'll create a SDL rect. Let's call it header. Let's set its X value to 0, its Y value to 0, its width to, let's say 100, its height to let's say 50. And then guys, let's display our header. So above right here, we'll just say SDL. Let's also define our header color. So let's say SDL color, header color equals to, let's make it black. So we'll just put 0 in there. And then we'll just call SDL underscore set render draw color render color underscore to param header color. Then we'll say SDL underscore draw rect render draw rect render, and then we'll pass in a reference to our header rectangle. Then we'll say SDL render fill rect render ampersand header, and then let us try to visualize what's happening on our screen. So I recompile the program, then I type /main, and we'll see that header up there. Let's center it onto the screen horizontally. So all we need to do, guys, is just say header.x equals to the window width minus our header.width or header.w divided by 2. And then it should be displayed in the middle of the screen once we recompile our code and then execute our executable. So there it is. Now guys, these are just blank rectangles, right? We'll use a library now called SDL TTF, which is a part of the SDL ecosystem. Because right now these are just placeholders. So we'll install the SDL2 library. So I'll start by doing that right now. So guys, what I'm gonna do is open up my MSys2 terminal. I'm gonna show you guys how to do this on Linux and Windows as well. And I'm gonna open up UCRT64 MSys2 shell. I'm gonna also open up my web browser, and I'm gonna type in UCRT SDL TTF, and here's the package that we need to install. So here's the command we need to run to install SDL TTF. We'll copy that by clicking this button on the website. Alright, so now that we have copied that, we will paste it into here, and then we will press enter on our keyboard, and that will install SDL TTF. Alright, so let's press Y to install. And let's wait on that to complete. Alright guys, I'm gonna cut the video until this installation completes. Alright guys, so the installation has just completed. So we can now close these windows. Also, if you guys are on Linux, you can install SDL TTF by doing this. So you can just open up a terminal and then you can type the following command. You can type sudo apt install libsdl2-ttf-dev. It will prompt you for your password. You type that in, then you press enter. I already installed it, so it won't ask me for that. But once that command completes, guys, you can continue following me along in the series, just like that. Can close our web browser. And let's try to display our header text using the SDL2 TTF library that we just installed. So first thing we need to do, we type #include SDL2, and in our SDL2 folder we'll have a SDL_TTF.h header file that we'll include. And then guys, what we'll need to do now is initialize SDL TTF. So we'll call TTF_init function. And at the end, guys, when we're finished with SDL TTF, we want to uninitialize it. So we'll call TTF_quit. And also, guys, in order to render text to the screen, we'll need to get a font that we'll use in order to render text. So let's first create a variable. Let's call it TTF font, and we'll use the TTF open font function. It essentially accepts a file to our font and then the point size, which is like the font size. So let's try to download a font real quick. Let's download something like Roboto font. So let's click on this Google font. And let's click on Get Font. And let's download those fonts. Alright, so it's currently downloading, guys. Alright, so it's completed now. Let's try to extract our Roboto font. So let's extract it. We'll click on Extract All. And let's wait on that to get extracted. Alright, so now that that is extracted, guys, here's our Roboto font. Now, what we'll do, let's just copy one of these font files, these TrueType font files, and we will drag it into our project folder. Let's just copy it. Wait, and then after we copy it, guys, so my project folder is on the desktop. I'll just paste that font right here. So now we have this Roboto italic variable font, whatever. Now I'm just gonna copy the file name from within VS Code, and I'm just gonna pass it in to the CTF open font function, and let's make the font size be 20. So now that we have done that, guys, we will also need to ensure that we close our font once we open it. So we call TTF close font, and then we'll pass in our font. And then now, guys, let's try to render some text, for example, on the screen. Because right now, when we run our executable file, our header is just a blank box. So let's do that now. So first thing, we'll create a string, a const or pointer, let's call it header text. And let's let it, the header text be checked up, application in C, and let's just set our width and our height to 0 for now, guys. Let's create two variables. Let's say int header width and header height. Now these two variables, guys, these will store our header width and our header height. We will get our text width and height based on the font size that we set for our font. So we'll do this, guys. We'll call this function called ttf underscore size text. It will pass in a reference to our font or a pointer to our font. We'll then pass in the text we want to get the size of, and then we'll pass in a reference to our header width variable and a reference to our header height variable. Once we have done that, guys, in this SDL rectangle thing, let's make the dot width member of this structure be our header width, and let's make the height be our header height. So let's see what happens in action now, guys. So right now, let's compile our code. Alright, so you can see we have undefined references here. Let's link, that's because we haven't linked to SDL TTF. So what we need to do is add this flag to our compiler. So we'll type -l SDL2 underscore TTF. And it's compiled successfully now, guys. So let's run our code. And you can see our header looks different. Now, let's try to actually display text onto the screen. So let's create a variable. Let's call it SDL color, header text color. And let's make our text color be something like yellow. So let's make our red value be 0 and our green value be 255, and our red value be 255, and our blue value be 0, and our alpha value be 255. So now that we have done that, guys, it's time to display our text onto the screen. So here's what we'll do, guys. We'll say header. We'll say SDL surface within our render loop. Wait, let's do it outside of this loop, guys, for now. So we'll say SDL underscore surface header text surface equals TTF underscore render text blended. So this function will essentially render our text for us, guys. We'll pass in our font to this function, then we'll pass in our header text, and then we'll set the color, which is our header text color variable that we created. The next thing we want to do is convert our surface, guys, into something called a texture. So we'll say SDL underscore texture pointer header texture equals to SDL underscore create texture from surface. Then we'll pass in our render, and then we'll pass in our header text surface. So what will happen, guys, it will convert our surface that it created from the rendered text, and then we'll convert it into a texture that we can use with our render. So now we will call SDL free surface because we won't need our text surface anymore. And then now, guys, within our render loop, we can actually render our text to the screen. So we'll call SDL underscore render copy render. We will pass in our header texture, and then it will ask us for a source rectangle. We'll set that to null for now, and it will ask us for the destination or the rectangle we want to display our text in, which will be a canvas, for example, which is this rectangle up here. So once we have done that, guys, let's see what happens on our screen now. So we recompile our code, then we run it. So you can see it shows chat application in C right there. Let's increase the font size of our text a bit. Let's make it be something like 36. It should be /main. So you can see it looks bigger now, guys. Now let's add some padding to it, cause you can see the text is like suffocating. So let's do that now. So here's what we need to do. Let's take the width and add 10 pixels to it, and let's take the height and add 10 pixels to it. And also, let's create a separate rectangle for our header, guys. So we'll say create a SDL rectangle. Let's call it header underscore text canvas equals to, we'll set the X value equal to 0. We'll set the Y value equal to 0. Then we'll set the width equal to 0 and the height equal to 0. Because here's what we're gonna do, guys. We're gonna center this text within our black background. So let's do that now. So I'm gonna make the width of this equal to the header width and the height of this equal to the header height. So guys, what I'm gonna do now, within this loop, I'm gonna do header underscore text canvas. So I'm gonna copy the texture to the header text canvas instead of just the header rectangle. So if we do this now, guys, let's see what happens. So let's run our program. So you can see it isn't inside of the box anymore. So let's position it right now. So all we need to do, guys, is set the X and Y position of it. So we'll say header text canvas dot X equals to the header dot X plus the header dot width minus our header text canvas dot width divided by 2, and it will essentially get the X position of this black box, guys, and then it will center it by subtracting the width of the text and from the box width, and then it should center it horizontally within that box. So let's recompile our code and let us run it. So now it is centered. Let's increase the padding for a bit. Let's make it 20 instead of 10. And let us recompile our program and let us run it. You can see it's bigger now. Now guys, you can see like it isn't centered vertically. So let's center our text vertically now. So we'll say header underscore text canvas dot Y equals the header dot Y plus the header dot height minus the header text canvas dot height divided by 2. And let us recompile our code and let us run it. So now it is centered. Let's add some more padding, like probably 40. Alright, so guys, this is gonna be it for today's video. In the next episode, we will make it so that we can probably display some messages within this white area or our chat area, and then we can probably type some messages in the input box, and we can literally just make it interactive. So thank you guys for watching. Hit the like and subscribe button if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next episode. Oh, also guys, this project will be on GitHub, the source code and everything. So I'll leave a link in the description for you guys to click on, and you can go over the source code and all of that. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next